In 1999, one of the world's most dominant fighters was found unconscious on his bathroom floor, nearly dead from an overdose. Just months later, he'd step into the ring for the biggest fight of his career. But here's what the movie doesn't tell you, that Overdose wasn't even his first. This is the real story behind The Smashing Machine. The Smashing Machine, directed by Benny Safdie and starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, tells the harrowing true story of Mark Kerr, a pioneer of mixed martial arts who dominated the UFC and Pride Fighting Championships in the late 1990s. But how much of what you saw on screen actually happened? Today, we're separating fact from fiction, revealing what the film captured perfectly, what it changed for dramatic effect, and the shocking details that were left out entirely. The movie opens with Mark Kerr's explosive debut at the World Vale Tudo Championship in Brazil in 1997, where he demolished 3 opponents in one night. What you saw was shocking, but the reality was even worse. Kerr's final opponent that night, Fabio Gurgel, refused to quit, so Kerr kept punishing him. He crushed Gurgel's orbital bone so badly that it had to be completely replaced with plastic. Gurgel never fought again. But here's the twist the movie couldn't show. The very next day, Gurgel's wife called Kerr and invited him to lunch. Kerr was terrified, thinking Gurgel's friends would be waiting to exact revenge. Instead, they sat down peacefully, and Gurgel showed Kerr something profound, that there's a complete separation between what happens in the ring and who you are outside of it. This encounter became the blueprint for how Kerr would carry himself throughout his MMA career. Respectful and humble outside the cage, absolutely savage inside it. The next day, a Brazilian magazine ran a cover calling him Máquina de Bater, the machine that smashes. The legendary nickname was born from that brutal night. Johnson gained approximately 30 pounds for the role, but it wasn't his typical bodybuilder bulk. Kerr had what Johnson described as a rare one-of-one body, the fast-twitch muscle fibers of an elite wrestler. To achieve this, Johnson spent a month in an intensive MMA training camp, working with real coaches and fighters. But the physical transformation was only part of it. Academy Award-winning makeup artist Kazuhiro created 21 individual prosthetic pieces that Johnson wore daily. The makeup process took 3 to 4 hours every single day. Johnson also worked with a voice coach to soften his naturally commanding presence into Kerr's gentle speaking voice. The result is stunning. Even Kerr's own son Bryce was shocked after seeing the film, whispering to his father, "Dad, he walks like you. He looks like you. He talks like you. He's even got your heart." One of the film's most devastating moments comes when Dawn discovers Mark unconscious after an overdose. But there are some crucial differences from reality. First, it wasn't Dawn who found Kerr. It was his therapist. Second, the friend who visited him in the hospital wasn't Mark Coleman, though Coleman appears throughout the film. Director Benny Safdie actually used Coleman's character as a composite, representing multiple people from Kerr's life, including his own brother Michael. But here's something the movie doesn't reveal. This wasn't Kerr's only overdose. Johnson mentioned at the Venice Film Festival that Kerr actually overdosed twice and is lucky to be alive. The addiction that nearly killed him began much earlier than the film shows, and the battle continued much longer than the movie's timeline covers. Despite these changes, Kerr praised how authentically the scene captured the shame and relief he felt when his secret was finally exposed. "I was carrying this thing around and I had nobody to talk to about it," he said. The film's most difficult scene to watch shows Mark and Dawn's relationship reaching a breaking point. Their argument escalates until Dawn goes to her room where Mark's handgun is kept. She attempts to shoot herself, but Mark stops her and wrestles the weapon away. Dawn then flees to the bathroom and locks herself inside, where she attempts to overdose on drugs. Mark breaks down the door to stop her. According to both Kerr and Safdie, this scene is shockingly close to reality. Kerr described watching it as like being a voyeur, watching my life, and almost feeling like I need to turn away. The scene was filmed in one take, with cameras hidden behind walls so the actors could focus purely on performance. Safdie only did one take because he didn't want Johnson and Emily Blunt to go through it again. But here's the crucial detail Kerr wants everyone to know. Dawn wasn't actually trying to kill herself. She knew nothing about handguns. Kerr always kept a Glock in his nightstand with a round chambered. Dawn didn't know there was no safety, didn't know her finger was in the trigger guard, didn't understand how little pressure it takes to discharge the weapon. This was her ultimate cry for help, Kerr explained. She's just this little girl asking me to love her and pay attention to her, and I have no clue how to do it. The only fictional element? The gift Dawn destroys during the fight. In reality, Mark brought back expensive silk robes from Japan worth about $1,000 each, which Dawn tore up. The movie changed it to a delicate Japanese bowl that she shatters, a choice that has more immediate visual impact. Later, when Dawn presents Mark with the glued-together bowl, it serves as a metaphor for her attempt at making things right. After moving to Japan's Pride Fighting Championships, Kerr experienced his first loss against Igor Vovchanchyn. In the film, we see Kerr convinced his opponent used illegal knee strikes, and he takes his complaint all the way to Pride executive Nobuyuki Sakakibara, who changes the ruling to no contest. This scene is remarkably accurate, with one key difference. Kerr was a lot more aggressive towards Sakakibara in real life. The way he confronted the executive was considered highly unusual in Japan, where protocol dictates you start with your handler and work up the chain. But here's what makes this moment even more significant. Kerr admitted he was high on narcotics going into that fight. "I wasn't sober, I was on a lot of narcotics. I should have lost," he confessed. The film captures this as the first crack in my facade, the moment his carefully constructed image began to crumble. Here's what casual viewers might not realize. During the exact period shown in the film, Kerr was simultaneously dominating another sport entirely. While fighting in the UFC and Pride, Kerr was also competing in the Abu Dhabi Combat Club Submission Wrestling Championships, widely considered the most prestigious grappling competition in the world. He won the heavyweight division in both 1999 and 2000, and also claimed the Absolute Division Championship in 2000, meaning he defeated fighters of all weight classes. This is like being heavyweight boxing champion while also winning an Olympic wrestling gold medal. The movie doesn't mention it once. Why leave this out? Safdie wanted to streamline the narrative and focus on the devastating physical toll of MMA fights, which provided a stronger backdrop for Kerr's painkiller addiction. There's a pivotal scene where fighters gather at a press conference about Pride banning headbutts and knee strikes to grounded opponents. The film presents this as a safety concern, but the reality was far more calculated. The rules changed not for fighter safety, but to make fights last longer and maximize entertainment value. Too many fights were being called early due to cuts from these brutal strikes. And here's the part that stings. Mark Kerr was famous for ending fights quickly with exactly these techniques. The rule changes essentially robbed him of his greatest advantages. Many in the MMA community believe Kerr was specifically the reason Pride made these changes. They needed their star attraction to put on longer shows, even if it meant handicapping their most dominant fighter. The movie climaxes with Kerr's devastating loss to Kazuyuki Fujita at the Pride Grand Prix 2000 finals. This fight marked the end of Kerr's rise, and there's one detail that makes it even more heartbreaking. Most people don't know that the rules for that specific fight required 15-minute rounds, 3 times longer than the standard 5-minute rounds used today. This exception was made because legendary fighter Royce Gracie insisted on it. For context, even championship UFC fights today max out at 5-minute rounds. About 12 minutes into that single round, Kerr hit a wall he couldn't climb over. He ended up on the ground, curled on his hands and knees, taking a beating for 2 full minutes. Kerr has explained his mindset in that moment. For whatever reason, the thought that came to my head was, I signed up for this. This is my penance. This is the price I have to pay. And here's an incredible detail about filming this scene. Dwayne Johnson insisted on being hit for real. The actor playing Fujita, who is an actual fighter, initially refused out of respect for Johnson. Johnson had to convince him, "Don't hit me in the jaw, you'll break it. Don't hit me in the temple, you'll kill me. But hit me in the cheekbone." Real-life fighter Bas Rutten, who plays himself in the film, finally told the guy, "Just hit him. He's The Rock. hit him. The actor delivered a real punch, giving Johnson a concussion that achieved the genuinely dazed look you see on screen. Here's a fascinating backstory the movie completely skips. Before MMA, Mark Kerr was pursuing Olympic glory as a wrestler. He was a Division I champion at Syracuse University in 1992, and after college, he won the USA World Team Trials in both 1993 and 1994. During those years, he developed a friendly rivalry with another wrestler, Kurt Angle. Yes, that Kurt Angle, the future WWE superstar. In 1996, both Kerr and Angle were competing for a single spot to represent the United States at the Olympics in Atlanta. Angle prevailed, went to the Olympics, and won gold. That loss changed Kerr's life forever. Unable to achieve his Olympic dream, he turned his attention to the emerging world of MMA. It's impossible not to wonder, what if Kerr had beaten Angle that day? Would he have avoided the brutal path that led to addiction and broken relationships? The film begins with Kerr already competing in MMA, but his battle with drugs started much earlier. At age 20, while at Syracuse University, Kerr lost his athletic scholarship after getting caught stealing from another student. He took various jobs, including working on the road with touring bands like the Rolling Stones. It was during this time that Kerr first tried cocaine. Taking cocaine for the first time, the sense of euphoria and alertness, it almost feels like you have Spider-Man senses, he told Sports Illustrated. On his 21st birthday, his parents didn't buy him a cake or celebrate. They told him they didn't know what to do with him anymore. This early addiction set the pattern for everything that followed. He has insisted he never touched performance-enhancing drugs during his Olympic trials, but once he entered MMA, everything changed. The steroids came first, then the painkillers, then the spiral that nearly cost him his life. The movie ends with Kerr's loss at Pride 2000, but the reality of what came next is almost harder to watch than anything in the film. Kerr continued fighting sporadically until 2009, but he was never the same. In 2004, he entered one final Pride bout and lost in 40 seconds. His final fighting record was 15 wins and 11 losses. Retirement brought new struggles. Kerr tried real estate, personal training, and eventually worked at a Toyota dealership. But in 2011, he relapsed. He entered rehab again in 2013. But upon exiting, he couldn't regain his footing. For a period of time, Mark Kerr, two-time UFC heavyweight tournament champion, the man who earned nearly $2 million in Japan, was homeless, sleeping in his car. In 2019, Kerr launched a GoFundMe campaign, revealing he had been battling peripheral neuropathy, a condition where nerve damage causes chronic pain. The decades of wrestling and fighting had taken their toll. He estimated he'd been dazed, or seen stars between 400 and 600 times throughout his athletic career. But here's where the real story finally gets its ending. Mark Kerr revealed something the movie couldn't show. He's been sober for 7 years. That took me a minute because that's a reckoning, Kerr told Time magazine. I recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of body and mind. What finally made the difference? His son Bryce asking him a simple question. Dad, do you think you can stop drinking? Kerr is now married to fitness consultant Francie Alberting, and together they started a wellness company. He maintains a positive relationship with his ex-wife Dawn, and their priority is being the best parents they can be to their son. In June 2025, Kerr was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. The person who presented him with his trophy? Dwayne Johnson. When Kerr first watched The Smashing Machine with director Benny Safdie, he stood up crying and hugged him. Then he noticed that Johnson and Emily Blunt had quietly slipped into the theater. They sat and talked for 45 minutes after the credits rolled. While I'm allowing people to walk with me through really difficult times, Kerr said, if putting my story out there can save one person's life, then my life means something. Mark Kerr's story isn't about a fighter who fell from grace. It's about a man who achieved extraordinary success while carrying extraordinary pain, who lost everything, and who somehow found his way back. The Smashing Machine captures that journey with remarkable authenticity, changing only minor details while honoring the emotional truth of every moment. As Kerr himself reflected, for the first time, I could actually see my part in it. I could see how hard I was on the people around me, how singularly driven I was to accomplish something at all cost. The film reminds us that the real fight is never just about opponents in a cage. It's about the battles we wage with ourselves, the damage we inflict on those who love us, and whether we can find redemption when the crowd stops cheering. If you found this deep dive fascinating, you'll love what's coming next on this channel. We break down the real stories behind your favorite true story films, uncovering what Hollywood got right, what they changed, and the incredible details that were left on the cutting room floor. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one, because the truth is always more interesting than fiction.